moving on to the old Rebel Moon. I'm going to stall for 2 seconds to pull up the synopsis. Okay, when a colony on the edge of the galaxy finds itself threatened by the armies of the tyrannical, I didn't even know that was a word, Regent Balissaris. Please help if I pronounce that right. They dispatch a young woman with a mysterious past to seek out warriors from neighboring planets to help them take a stand. It's obviously directed by Zack Snyder. Was his big. He made a he made a Star Wars movie. They said no. He pitched it to Netflix just as a new movie. And it's just Star Wars. But George, resident Zack Snyder fan, take us away. Rebel Moon released on Netflix this week. Everyone loves it, man. It's getting rave reviews.
Oh God, fuck! This is so. I don't want to be here right now. Nah, this was just the most annoying experience, the most frustrating watch. Just knowing that they've admitted to a Snyder cut, that they've told us that the actual that this release that we got is not the actual movie, is just like the most infuriating thing, because the entire time I'm watching Rebel Moon, I'm thinking like, damn, like that, it just felt underdeveloped. That scene felt half-assed. Everything just felt like it was so choppy, and it truly did feel like the first draft of something. Like, and it's annoying to know that like there is this Snyder cut out there, and I hope, for the sake of just not making this like a thing going forward, I hope no one tweets like release the Rebel Moon Snyder cut. I hope no one is a part of that bandwagon, because I want that to fail. I want it to fail so badly, because I'm so mad that they didn't just drop that cut immediately. And I'm not saying that cut is going to be like wildly different the way like Justice League is to Zack Snyder's Justice League, or wildly better. But it's just annoying to know that like we could have had like a 3-hour cut of this movie that like could have filled in some of the loose ends, could have filled in some of these gaping holes in this movie. My biggest problem was I just did not care. The only character whose name I remember is Korra. And the only reason I remember it is because they said it 650 times. But other than that, there was no one else who I like really cared about. Charlie Hunman, or whatever his last name is, I thought he was just like brutally underused. I thought every other character was just underdeveloped. It was like
give him an Irish accent for no reason.
Yeah, that was it was so off-putting every time he opened his mouth.
Yeah,
but yeah, like that's just my biggest problem with this movie. It felt so half-assed, and it truly felt like they have this 3-4 hour cut of the movie, and then they went in and they just stripped it of like scenes here and there, so that the end product of what we got just looked like, or just felt like, this like combination of scenes that just don't flow properly together. And it's very annoying. It's very annoying just knowing that this Snyder cut is out there. I will always praise Zack Snyder's like eye. That's just something I'm attracted to. I know it's very polarizing. I know I'm sure you guys don't love it as much as I do, or even like it. But I like his aesthetic. I like his dark color grading. I like his use of slow-mo. I just think it's cool. I don't know what it is about it. I just enjoy that he has this like very unique and distinct style. I just think it makes for a very unique and distinct experience. I'm also a science fiction guy, so I ended up with a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Even I'll admit that that's probably a bit high, but that's my science fiction Zack Snyder bias. I love being introduced to new worlds. I love being introduced to new characters. Again, I just wish that everything was developed more. That's my biggest problem with this movie. It just felt, and I'll say it time and time again, it just felt half-assed. It felt like the first draft of something. Something that could have been potentially truly great. But yeah, I ended up with a 2.5 out of 5. I weirdly want to rewatch it, just to like really see how pissed off it'll make me. But yeah, that's my quick non-spoiler thoughts of Rebel Moon. Sad.
All righty, Seth, we haven't heard from you in a while. I guess you gave your thoughts already.
Yeah, I mean, I gave my
more into detail.
I gave my initial kind of review because obviously I wasn't embargoed then. So like thoughts remain the same. Some of George, half baked, derivative, pointless, rushed character introductions that offer nothing in terms of emotional stakes or emotional complexity. Don't remember any of the names for any of the characters. Same as what George said. It's so evident that this wasn't made to be the film, which I just find it absolutely pointless why they released this cut in general, because you get the character introductions, you get the characters, doing this big sacrifice, whatever it might be in terms of their project, but then you don't get to know the characters at all. Barely any of them say anything, barely any of them the background. You get one weird sequence of introduction that is just so rushed, and then it moves from that narrative point to the next one. Let's add in a slow-mo fight scene, and I quite like Zack Snyder's action as well. I don't really the slow-mo for me gets a bit much at times. I do think that some of the fight scenes in particular could have been a lot cooler without, or just with less so, just because it gets kind of grainy for me. But I actually quite like Zack Snyder's visual style. I think there are a few shots in this that are good, and he clearly has an eye for direction, as we've seen many, many times before. But for me, as far as the story goes, it's so lackluster. I like to be introduced to the new world for the first 20 minutes. And then it just kind of falls under the pitfall of every generic sci-fi, whilst also being very derivative of many of the projects, obviously particularly New Hope, which is, derivative or inspiration, whatever, but it's very much there. And it really falls under that category as well. Obviously, it was pitched as a Star Wars film, so it kind of makes sense. But it just can't stand its own for 2 feet. And the biggest complaint I have about this film is it's just pointless. It's not a film. It's not the full project. It's not Zack Snyder's vision. It's not the vision of where the story wants to go. And if they want to make this into a universe of, they're making a video game, that was obviously confirmed. They're making a video game about this. They're making a comic book. They mentioned all this when I went to the premiere as well. Obviously, Deborah and Zach were both speaking about it. And if they want to make this into a huge universe, they can't be doing this, because A, it'll put a really bad light into people's eyes, and B, people just won't go and see the film. It won't make any money because they'll think, oh, the actual film is going to be coming out in 2 months. I'll just wait for that. Okay, great. You're losing money on theatrical release there. So yeah, I just think it's kind of a pointless film. There were moments I liked. I do quite like Zack Snyder's films that I've seen, admittedly. But overall, just pointless and kind of boring.
Is this? Do we know if this Snyder cut is going to release before part 2? Do we even know that?
I don't think we have. It's not this is not like a Snyder cut that's going to trend online and then they're going to be forced to release it. They already are planning to release that, and I'm pretty sure it's in the next couple of months.
It's just the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah,
it's like everyone knows it. No one's gonna go and watch it because it's like, oh, well, I'll just
that's my biggest frustration.
Yeah. If anything, this is just pissing everyone off. Piss me off.
But it's not going to, man. And my problem is people are gonna see the full cut and be like, man, they should have let Snyder cook. And that's what they want, and they're gonna get it from a general audience. Not from us.
They're losing money with that though. It just makes.
I don't think they are, because I don't think most people know. In the grand scheme of movie watchers, most people don't know that they're gonna release a 3-hour or a 4-hour cut, whatever it may be, on Netflix in 2-3 months or whenever they do. And maybe it's not that soon, but it's going to happen, and it's going to be a manufactured release the Snyder cut, and it's just so annoying, man. It's just stupid. That's as if I didn't like this movie, I probably would have given it a 2.5. But the fact that I didn't like it, and that's gonna happen, I brought it down a half star and brought it down to my ratings a little bit, because it's petty, but that's annoying and that's stupid. Tyler, your thoughts?
Yeah, just the whole Snyder cut thing's frustrating, because the point of the original Snyder cut was that someone else took over his movie. It was it's a director's cut, it's extended, but it was someone else's movie that now is his movie.
And he had a tragic event that happened, his daughter died, which is extremely sad, and my heart goes out to him for that. But like you said, someone took over. There was a reason that took this over.
There was an accidental cause that couldn't have been changed, and someone took over his film. For this one, is literally a manufactured error on their part. It's so stupid.
So and it's just it's dumb, because they were trying to capitalize on the hype, because Netflix had tons of movies this year, even like Maestro, that had a full month in limited theaters before coming out. This didn't. So that you're telling me it's just another 45 minutes to an hour of hard drive space on Netflix's massive servers. So there's no need to make a shorter movie to be palatable to audiences. At first, a few months ago, when we heard the news there's going to be 2 cuts, and they said one's PG-13, one's R. I thought, I don't like that, but I thought, they're trying to make a huge universe, so they're going to have a PG-13 and R at the same time, so then as much people as possible can see it, so they can make this their huge thing. I didn't think it was going to end up being this. Shorter. I didn't even know until like a couple days before it came out that I was like, the 3-hour cut's not coming out like today. I literally thought it was like on purpose they're going to have an R and PG-13 because like we want as many people to see this as possible to be massive. Yeah, and the thing is like, studios do this all the time. Producers do this all the time. But Zack Snyder's not innocent. It's like, obviously, if the Snyder Cut scarred him that much, he wouldn't have agreed to do this. He's not a starving director out there right now. And again, it's Netflix where this is on streaming, where it's just a movie being uploaded to the server. So if it was really that big of a deal for him to have his director's cut released immediately, I guarantee negotiations wouldn't last longer than a day for him to finally be like, nope, final straw. Like, I need the full cut release. It's literally just an hour more of content uploaded to their server that has millions of hours of content on it. I don't understand it. I think they completely misread the room with it. And we'll see, because it just makes such a bad first movie that then we're going to have to get the director's cut. I just don't think they understood what the hype was and the cultural zeitgeist that was the Snyder Cut. And it's something that can't be replicated, and it's not going to be replicated, but we'll see how it goes. We get part 2 coming soon, but for my thoughts on the movie as a whole, I think even more so than most, I really love the visual filmmaking in this. I thought it was like gorgeous. I've seen a lot of people hate on the visual effects and the slow-mo. I can get the slow-mo being super tiresome, but the visual effects, at least for me, I maybe it was just like, maybe my TV's not 4K Ultra HD enough, but I was like, I didn't have any issues. I thought this movie was pretty beautiful from beginning to end. I really enjoyed it visually. That's pretty much where the praise ends. I just thought it was ultimately pretty dry, lifeless, and uninteresting. And obviously when you're kind of having the planet they have that has to become rebellious based on how they're being treated by like the Empire, like I don't mean it's like a dry planet in terms of that, because obviously they're supposed to be down in the dumps and like, okay, like our life sucks, we want to get better. I mean, just like the film itself and storytelling was dry, lifeless, and uninteresting. The characters were the biggest problem, and I feel like people are going to argue this, but and I like them in a lot of projects, like Sophia Boutella, Charlie Hunnam, Ray Fisher, Jaimin Hansu. I think they're great in a lot of projects, but there's no star power here. And you can say The Force Awakens didn't have star power either with A-list actors, and you'd be right. At the time, they weren't mainstays, but it's Star Wars IP. You have the IP to bounce off
and
of.
They all became, but these people are, sorry to cut you off, these people are already established in Hollywood, and they're not star powers. Like Ray, Adam Driver,
is
John
Ray?
Boyega,
I don't even know who Ray is, to be honest. Is he like a
Daisy Ridley? Daisy Ridley, she's not super established, and she didn't like make it super big. Okay, she's got Star Wars, but John Boyega and Adam Driver, they're stars in their own right now. Like Adam Driver especially, and then John Boyega's in a lot of good things. Like they've become stars from that.
And that's because like the box out, like I mean, it's just such massive IP, it can lift people up.
The Star Wars name.
You really needed, exactly, the Star Wars name. You really needed to go all in and get a bankable star for this. And I'm all for new faces in Hollywood getting their shot, but if you're trying to build up this, like Seth said, comic books, video games, multiple movies, probably like ideally, I bet Zack Snyder's a master plan of spin-offs, and like he wants to make this a massive thing.
They're making
a bankable thought.
When they sorry to cut in, Tyler, that when they did the kind of like the speech when we went to the premiere, they stressed how big they want this to be. Like it's for them, it is literally like a next like Star Wars variation where there's games, there's comic books, there's TV shows. They want to make this, the next thing. I think Deborah Snyder mentioned they want to have, they want this to be like the thing that kids grew up with, like how Cam grew up with Star Wars, for example. They want this to be this thing, and it needs that powerhouse, that drive. Just to mention what you were saying, Tyler, I actually checked this earlier because I saw this tweet. On the visual side of things, just to weigh in on this, when I watched it when I was at the event, I'll be honest, it looked significantly worse than on my TV. Like genuinely, what you just said about how it actually, when it's on a big screen, there are parts where it's like the effects look a little bit stale and bland and also not very well done. So that might also be
maybe that's why they didn't do the theatrical release. So like, let's keep this on people's 50.
I agree with you though. I don't think it was like visually. I think there were much more positives than negatives visually. Anyway, definitely.
Yeah, and that was enough to keep me interested. But Cora is the main character in this franchise. Sophia Boutella, like I enjoyed her. Was it the first Kingsman? Yeah, I think it was the first Kingsman she was in.
First Kingsman, yeah.
She was I enjoyed her in that, but haven't seen her in a ton. And man, she was just a pretty lifeless character for me that I just didn't care about. And the fact that you really have to bank this whole thing on her shoulders with a couple supporting cast members who are best known for maybe a TV show from 10 years ago that dads loved. Like, I don't know.
Hey,
nothing wrong with dad shows, but let's be honest, the target audience, if you average everyone who loves the show, it's probably averaged in the 30s or so for average age. But
valid.
It's just, there's no star power here. And I think that's what's going to kill the franchise ultimately. Really, really boneheaded decision for the Snyder Cut. And I will say the positives, like I said, visual filmmaking, but Admiral Atticus, what's his last name? Played by Ed Skrein. I don't think I'd seen anything Ed Skrein's in, but I actually really enjoyed that character. He's like the only character I was like, I like when he's on my screen. I was interested in him, and
I think he did really well with the role he was given. Like he was demanding. He had a kind of presence.
And he did well in that role of power and being the asshole that you never know when they're gonna snap.
He did.
Yeah, that's just the thing about the Snyder Cut, man. It's just I don't know if this gave me enough to be that excited for a Snyder Cut. Justice League, it was a completely different movie. So it's like I want to see what Snyder has, not because he's going to edit the movie differently. It's because it's going to be a totally different movie. Like this is just going to be an extended edition of what we're seeing, which is what a normal director's cut is. But yeah, usually director's cuts are you have a full finished movie and then you have a couple things more fleshed out that aren't really going to impact the story. So when Zack Snyder says things like his cut of this movie is a completely different universe, that's just sending alarm bells off my head that like, what are we doing with this franchise here? But 2-star for me. Again, the visuals were pretty much carrying the whole thing, but this is so boring, man. Just so lifeless and dull. And yeah.
Ugh. I gave it a 44 out of 100, 2 out of 5 stars. Definitely frustrated by the Snyder Cut thing, and that just, to me is just screaming like, and we don't need to keep hitting the nail on the head, but just screaming like corporate greed, honestly, to double dip into this universe just for one movie. Like I understand going back to the universe, creating a franchise. I'm the biggest franchise guy on this podcast. I'll never get mad about a franchise by any means. But just like the idea that you're going to release the same movie and claim it's a different one and say it's a different universe, like then just call it, Rebel Moon Part 2, like, and then make the third one Part 3 or the next one Part 3. And I'm reading a nice Forbes article about it. So it's getting out there that Rebel Moon will suffer because of Netflix obvious Snyder Cut stunt. Yeah, hell yeah, more power to you, Forbes, on that one. Outside of that, I don't know. Maybe I'm a Zack Snyder hater, and he seems like a really, really nice guy. So I should not be. But I can't keep up with this slow-mo, man. I'm glad it doesn't bother you guys.
What, they need to slow it down more for you? Can't keep up with it?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. I can't get behind the slow-mo, I should say. And I'm glad it doesn't bother you guys as much, but it's just infuriating to me every time. It's an action scene a lot of times, but sometimes it's not an action scene. It's just people like sitting and like the snow falling and stuff. And my dog's being a real menace right now. Hey, Echo, relax. Stop that. But it's just too much, and it's all the time. And Soups asked him about it. It's like, there's a lot of slow-mo in this, and he's like, yeah, you gotta pick the times with it. No, man, you just throw it in. He just does. Like, there's no way all this is methodical. And he's like, yeah, this makes it better. I just don't believe it. Maybe I'm negative. It's just frustrating. There's like an exact scene, and I said it in my review. There's an exact binary sunset scene with Cora in this movie, but she's just looking at a giant moon versus a binary sunset. Like it's the exact, it ripped straight from, and that's just my like Star Wars bias in me to be like upset about it. But like you said, Seth, there's a moment where they like go into a bar and there's a bunch of like weird creatures. Again, it's a New Hope. It's Return of the Jedi. It's all of them. That's like Star Wars' thing, is walking into that cantina for the first time and you meeting all these characters. And I'm not saying you can't do it, but just the way that this was pitched as a Star Wars movie and then it's a get back at Disney for not allowing it, is one of those things where you're like, well, clearly here it is. Anthony Hopkins opens this movie with a monologue that I swear is ripped straight from The Last Night. It's just the exact same thing, I think. And then in The Last Night, he gets blown up by some transformer. So bummer that he doesn't get that in this movie, I guess. Echo, what do you do?
And we didn't even talk about how the movie opens with the vagina ripple in the universe.
Yeah. Also, you can see like how this is supposed to be R-rated, where a lot of it is talking about like you want to find a lover, right? Like find a lover tonight or whatever. And so I understand like how this could be R-rated, like going from that to just full frontal sex or whatever it may be. But it's just, and therefore it feels kind of half-assed because it feels like they're just, half doing it. But just go full on to the R-rated, man. And I understand wanting it to be a franchise for kids, but I think you could start a franchise at R-rated. I don't know. Like, not every franchise has to start with kids. You could be 20 and enjoy a franchise, and also kids these days, they're watching R-rated movies. Maybe not all of them, but there are a good amount of kids that are getting on Netflix and watching an R-rated movie at like 15 or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Couldn't get behind it. Didn't care for the characters. We can go into spoilers now.
Is there even spoilers to this movie?
Yeah, there's just.
You could guess the whole thing.
Guess the whole thing, but there are spoilers, I guess. But getting into it a little bit, like they're just basically traveling to the mother world. Is this movie's Death Star,
which is like the most kindergarten thing to name it.
Mother World.
Like I feel like Zack Snyder walked into a class of kindergartners and he's like, "Hey guys, I got this really big bad world. Big empire that I need a name for," and some little kid's like, "Oh, the Mother Planet," or whatever the fuck it was called.
It's like what Ari Aster would name it.
I have a belief that Zack Snyder was like Mother Box in DC. I'm just gonna take that. We'll do Mother World. It'll be the same thing. But yeah, Cora's character, she goes to a bunch of different are they planets? Yeah, they're different planets. Yeah,
planets.
All different planets. She finds Charlie Hunnam's character Kai. Finds Gunner, right? Or no, she's with Gunner. Michael Huseman is that. He's from
Game of Thrones.
No, he was
no, it's Haunting of Hill House.
Yes. Yeah.
I saw
older
that.
Brother.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, hell yeah.
At first it was the beard. I was like, what the fuck is this guy? And then I was like, oh, Hill House dude. Okay. Yeah. Which is weird.
Yeah.
See, I haven't seen him in much, but like seeing him in a more physical role, like from knowing him just from Hill House was odd.
Do you not remember him in Game of Thrones, George?
Was he in Game? Oh,
he was the guy who was. It's funny. Actually,
he was recast. He played Dario Naharis, right?
Both of them were in it. Both of the first guy who played Dario and him, they're both in the film. Because the other
who was the first guy?
Let me find him. He's some guy with long hair. I can't remember what his name is. I'll get it up. Just carry on.
I will say to praise Rebel Moon just a little bit outside of like the visuals. I like Cora as a character.
He's the bad guy, Seth. He's the bad guy. Scar
or is it him?
Yeah.
George. So he's
the guy from Deadpool.
Dario Naharis.
Yeah, Deadpool. I knew he was.
They're both in it. That's interesting.
Man, I didn't even realize that.
I didn't peep that. I didn't know he was.
Someone told me after. I was like, oh shit. Yeah.
I didn't know he was the OG Dario Naharis, but Cora. Again,
Ed Skrein.
Ed Skrein
sounds like a villain name.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad person's name. Cool. I like the character of Cora. I think she's the only one that they like took their time with, which makes sense because like this whole franchise is going to be on her shoulders. Her backstory though was just like
they gave her the
just the most like cliche trope ridden backstory of like, oh, baby kidnapped, trained into an elite warrior to do bad, and now she's like part of the revolution. It's literally just like you could have told me that she was stolen as a child, and I could have written the remainder of that story. I knew exactly where they were taking it.
I'm trying to pull it up right now. They gave her the Fury Brad Pitt haircut in So here we go.
Didn't even dude, she looked like two different people with that haircut. I swear to God.
Yeah, she did.
She looked like two completely different people.
He gave her this haircut. Did her dirty with this one in her backstory, man. Yeah, exact same.
That's a fire haircut, Loki.
Yeah, right.
And Fury's a good movie. But no, I enjoyed her as a character. It was just every character around her is just who I had a problem with. I don't know about you guys. I didn't see the Charlie Hunnam twist coming. Oh, I don't know what his last name is.
I didn't.
But yeah. But it also, like, it didn't surprise me when it happened. I was like, oh. Yeah. I was like,
it
okay.
Would have been him. It would have been him.
Yeah, like that.
If it were anyone, yeah.
Yeah, if it were anyone, like that makes sense. Like,
it's always the one who's going to be closest to the main character and have these like conversations in the middle.
Yeah.
And they put like obvious focus onto him to make you like surprised. But even if you were surprised, you also weren't.
And it's also one of those things where like they're like, oh, you're always a smuggler and a criminal. You know, you're always the criminal. It's never changed or whatever. You know, it's such a basic thing. Like make the like Michael Huseman Gunner character, make him turn on him. Why not? You know, like just do something a little different. But just don't have the balls.
God, what did you guys think of the action sequences at least?
I liked the
I like the first one, the one where Cora,
the first one where she's fighting the guys.
Yeah.
I like that. I actually did like that one because it was quite cool. But God, there's just so much slow-mo, man. But I think I actually like some of the shots. I think are cool. I just don't know if that much slow-mo works for me. But I did like the first one. There was another one. I like the one where they fought.
The spider one was kind of cool.
The spider one, that's the one. Yeah. When they fought that. I thought that was cool.
Well. I did the big climactic battle at the end with Cora and the bad dude. I did not care for.
Yeah, no, not at all.
It was the most anti. Yeah, it was just not even that I didn't care about the characters. It was just the most like, okay, this is happening now type fight, and I was like, oh. Okay, we're doing this right now. Okay, that doesn't really feel like it doesn't feel. It didn't feel like Cora earned that fight.
It was like my reaction to the last fight in Wakanda Forever. It was a similar reaction where it was like it just came up and I was like, oh
yeah, like it was just there, and I was like, okay, like right after Charlie Hunnam's character betrayed them, they escape and now they're fighting everyone. I thought that like I checked the time on the movie and I was like, oh, there's only like 15-20 minutes left, like we're nearing like some climax, and I was like, this feels like the middle portion of a movie, and then everything unfolds and you have Cora and the bad guy on top of like that whatever scaffolding shit or whatever you want to call it, and I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this right now, like this is where we're having the big final battle of this movie, and it just did not feel like rewarding. It feels like Cora's character just needed to go through more to have earned that fight, and it just, I don't know. Then that just plays to the whole Snyder cut, this cut feeling ridiculously underdeveloped.
Yeah. I don't know. It's too much slow-mo for me. I've already mentioned that, so I don't want to keep hitting it. I've been too rude to like Zack Snyder on this one. I do think the movie looks really great, and I think he's fantastic at like making these worlds look really good. But I think I don't love the writing in most of his movies, and I think if that got a little bit better, I'd be a lot happier. But I do.
You know
think
why you don't like the movie, Tom? Do you know why you don't like the writing? Yeah.
Why?
Because it's related. It was influenced by Seven Samurai, and you're just not there yet.
Yeah, and it's very classic, just like people losing their minds online.
I love Snyder defenders. I love
my comments have been because my like review went like got started getting views again. Because obviously the actual film released, and my comments have been hideous. Like some of the comments are wild.
My comment they've been fucking funny. They've been people are like, oh,
not one in yours, George. Like, name one better sci-fi.
Yeah, that was the funniest shit. Like, name a better sci-fi movie. And then some dude commented like 14 times, just naming 14 different movies. And he put in like M. Night's The Happening. And I was like, oh, fuck. But yeah, comments have been jokes. People have commenting on my vid like, damn, even if the biggest Snyder meat rider isn't loving Rebel Moon, that's how you know it sucks. And I was like, shit. It's like, is this my reputation?
Yeah, it's just not amazing. We don't have to talk it too much. I'm sure we'll talk it again when the Snyder Cut releases, of course. But I wish we didn't have to. Like, I wish we could have skipped this movie, in the sense that we could have just gone right to the Snyder Cut and it wouldn't. But we have to talk it, which is fine. I'm fine with watching it. I just.
That's the annoying thing. Like, I don't want to watch the Snyder. Like, I love Zack Snyder. I hope Netflix suffers because of this. Like, I hope no one tunes in to watch the Snyder Cut. I hope no one tweets # release the Rebel Moon Snyder Cut. Ugh.
When do you think it's going to come out?
Pisses me off.
When do you think it'll?
I guess it's not in the next couple months, but I do think it'll.
Well, part 2 comes out in like April, right?
Yeah, it comes out in March. The next one now.
March.
Is it really? I thought
it was late 2020.
Yeah, if you watch the trailer again, there's so many things in the trailer that weren't in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
What?
The first trailer, like the first trailer to Rebel Moon.
They filmed it as 2 movies, which I love. Like I could get behind that so heavily if there's like
19th of April
of it being another Rebel cut, the Rebel cut, we'll call it.
So are we not even going to get the extended version?
I mean, we have to.
I wonder if they give us like the extended version of both 1 and 2, and it's like, oh, you can watch regular version or extended version. But also, again, that's just corporate greed. Fuck you for double dipping.
They will. I can see it. I know. That's crazy.
I don't know. It's got 23% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's not being well received by people outside of Snyder fans. It feels like. And if you are a Snyder fan, that's totally fine. Enjoy it.
Thanks, Tam.
I'm glad you like him. He's a very nice person from everything I see. So probably shouldn't be like shitting on him like that. But we'll move on unless you guys have anything else to say. 2 out of 5 from Seth, Tyler, and I. And then Ed George was a 2.5. Mine was 44 out of 100.